Hi, this is Matt McIntosh, and in this video I'm going to take that retopology that I've done for the previous video into a different program to smooth out the area. So first off, what I'm going to do is hide it by going to my visibility, and then under the subtool menu, split hidden. And if you select it, you can see that it's a separate tool, and the way that I've got that kind of thinness to it is that I turned my reticle down to 1 when I turned it into a mesh. I'm just exporting it, and what I'm also going to do is export this high-res head. And if you look at the topology on this, there's lots of polys. There's 825,000, 26,000 even. And yeah, in Zbrush, if you take that into a different program, it is actually only half the poly count, so there's going to be like 1.6 million. Even on a good machine, you're still going to get some slowdown. So what you should be looking to do is use the Z plugin to cut down the amount of polys by using Decimation Master. And as you can see, it's taking it down to 82,000. It's still like 160 odd thousand, but that's far more manageable in a 3D package. So the one that I'm going to use is Silo. And what I'm doing with this is just loading that high poly head into my scene, and just takes a moment. And yeah, you can see that 160,000 polys there. I'm turning the wireframe off, making it kind of see-through, and then I'm locking that object so I can't select it or move it. What I'm now going to do is load in my low poly face that I've also exported from Zbrush. So this is the retop. As you can see, there's a lot of kind of errors with it, so stuff like this. So all I'm going to do is select those edges, select the verts, and bring them together, not like that, by using the scale option. So I'm just going to zero that down, and it brings them both together. And what I'm going to do is stick that to the object surface. So there is features like that available in 3ds Max. I just find it a lot easier to use Silo to do this sort of stuff. That being said, you can complete your entire assignment just using the programs that are in the labs. I'm just using this program because I've got a preference to do so. So again, what I'll do with those is just zero the scale off on them in the x-axis, and let's close that gap up. And now what I'm going to look at doing is selecting these faces down the central section of the nose and on the chin, and that creates a gap where it allows me to then select half of the face and delete that away. Okay, so what I'm now going to look at doing is using the relax tool to start evening out the surface on this. But first off, I'm going to get some of these edges and just drag them across the surface so it'll look a little bit even, or a little bit more even, should I say. Okay, so just going around the edges of this face shape that I've got, and pulling things into position so that when I do start relaxing things, it gives a more even appearance to this mesh. Maybe I've gone a little bit too far down with that. And okay, the last one, that middle one, I'm just going to drag it down in the y-axis so it shouldn't move it around too much. Okay, so best thing to do with this is select quite a large area of polys, or vertices even, and all I'm doing is just relaxing those verts. So you'd be using a relax modifier, or relax button even, on the edit poly modifier in 3ds Max. And as you can see, just pressing that a few times, start to pull the polys back into position. And because I've got this feature of snap to surface, it's actually allowing me to stick it onto the model that I've got underneath, so that it stays in the right sort of shape. So yeah, this video is going to take a little while to do, but to consider that, you know, within less than an hour it's going to be a case of creating the retop and having it in a format that's going to be usable, I don't think it's pretty bad going, really. So what I'm just going to do with these now is, again, select them, and if you get any points that aren't selected, just select them, relax them, and they'll pull back into shape. And then, yeah, before you let go of anything or start selecting other verts, just make sure that you've stuck it to the surface, because otherwise you'll end up with indentations or stuff that goes through the surface, and yeah, it won't quite be right. So just make sure that you do actually move them around slightly so that they stick on the surface properly. Okay, so just in this cheek area and bridge of the nose. And I want to get this stuff sorted out so that when I start evening the eyes area out, it doesn't kind of pull it too much out of position. If you start relaxing too much in one go, what will happen is areas where it actually follows contours will start to kind of come out of those positions, and you want to avoid that. If you've gone to a bit of effort trying to line it up with that geometry in the first place, you might as well try and keep it in a position that's going to be useful. If you do find that it does come out of place though, because it's stuck to the surface, you can just kind of drag across that surface and it will fall back into place. Okay, just doing the underside of the eye now. And this will be the lower eyelid area. Well, the bag area just underneath the eye. And I'm just pulling these points back into position so that they're more in tune with what I created in the first place. These bits, I'm just going to relax them and then drag them back over that position so that they're evened out, but they're then back in the place that I intended them to be. Okay, so that's starting to look alright now. There's a little bit of an area that needs some attention just here, and all I'm going to do with that is just even it out, and then the back bits, you're not really going to see them. How much effort you put into tidying up these bits on the back of the eyeball is up to you, but for this example, the eyes are going to sit over the top of this, so I'm not going to put too much effort into tidying those bits up. Okay, so I'm going to move down to the mouth area and just start around this nasolabial fold and smoothing it out as I'm going. I don't want to select too much of the nose because it'll pull it out of position. And what I'm going to do later on, once I've got some of these into a better standing, is cut some geometry in. But if you remember in that other video, I had a hole that I couldn't fill, and there we go. I can just select two edges and bridge them, and you know, job's done. I don't need to stress about it too much. So if you do have any issues where geometry is not quite working the way that you expect it to in Zbrush, you can always bring it into 3ds Max or a package like this and just fix it here. Okay, just getting the tip of the nose sorted out, and just in that kind of crease next to the nose, next to the nostril even. What I'm going to do is actually cut a little bit more information into this. So I'm just selecting edges, and in 3ds Max it'd be insert edge loop, which would go the entire way around. You don't want to do that. You probably use the cut command and cut that in the whole way around. And what I'm going to do with this as well is just select this row of edges, deselect the ones that I don't need, up to the point where I can cut into this information in one swoop, like so, and then I'm just going to target weld that back into position and get rid of the triangle. So and now just even that out a little bit more, because it's got areas that are bunched up together. Again, on this kind of ridge around the nostril. And by doing this, it just gives me a bit more geometry to actually smooth the thing out. Because I cut that information in, I now need to cut again to create 2 quads. When I smooth that bit out, you can see I've got the 2 quads kind of encompassing it. And what I'm going to do is cut a line in there in a second. I just want to sort out this other element and smooth that one out. And there we go. So I'm getting a bit of a kind of crease for that nose. I'm going to move this up a little bit more on the bridge of the nose and just even this area out a little bit more. And actually I'll just smooth these out whilst I'm here. Okay, so what I'll do with this is I'll select the row of polys that go around this area, and I'll just bevel them. Turn your surface snapping off, otherwise it'll distort when you do it. And then just go over any areas where you've created an end on. And what that's done is it's given me a bit of a ridge for the information from the nostril, so it should make it stand out a little bit more effectively. And when I smooth it, I should get a better shape as well. So yeah, just smoothing that area out, and yeah, it just looks a little bit nicer. So because I've cut in that information, I now need to go back over those points and smooth them out so that they're not all bunched up in that one area. Okay, so this is looking pretty smooth. Just a few little bits left to sort out. What I'll look to do on the lip area is maybe give it a little bit more kind of definition by putting in an extra row of polys, so that if I do mesh smooth it or anything, it should stay quite defined rather than losing any of the definition. So again, to do that, I'm just selecting it, turning off my surface snap, and just giving it a little bit of a bevel so that any of those edges stay in the position that they should do. And I'm just going to even out the surrounding topology so that it's a little bit smoother. Okay, pull these points into position. Get it lined up with that edge of the lip. And again, if you see any areas that need fixing, just go over it and select it and smooth it out. Realistically, I could probably do with another row of polys in here, but you kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to achieve, or at least I hope you get the idea. There's definitely a need for some more polys up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth this area out a little bit, and then I'm going to look to add in an extra row or 2 of polys so that things are a little bit smoother on the forehead. And what that should also do is lend itself to if I want to put any morph targets onto the thing. So if I wanted any kind of ruffled brows or like that, or creases or anything, I should be able to get that information with these additional loops. So again, just select the rows that you want to cut into, and then make sure that you cut off any areas so that you don't end up with n-gons, and make sure that you've got everything selected before you cut, otherwise you end up with an area like I just did where you need to go over it and fix it. Okay, I'm gonna bevel this. So again, turning off my snap to surface feature, just using the bevel tool. An arc like that would end up with a lot of distortion, so you definitely need to turn it off for that. What I'm now going to do is just make a mirror of the thing, combine the edges together. So I'm going to combine these objects, select the center line with the row of verts in there, but before I do that, just select two if they're slightly far apart, and use that scaling option to just bring them back into position. Once you've got them selected, like so, got 70 verts there. All I need to do is press Ctrl W, and it's welded those things together. You'd use the weld feature within 3ds Max, and on this one I've now got 15 verts, so there's one that just needs a weld together. So I've got 14 verts in that bit. If I just put a mesh smooth on it, I can test to see whether there's any issues or not. Kind of got this ridge going around the edge of it, and that's because there's two rows of polys really close to each other. So the reason that I've done that is that I can smooth these things out, and because they're in the center line, they shouldn't deviate too much. So it's just a case of using that smooth feature to get your best angle, and then hit the smooth feature and stick it back on the surface. Okay, so just doing the tip of the nose at the moment, and going on to the bridge of the nose, and then into the forehead. If you select verts that are just the centralized ones, and the verts around them are much further apart, you may need to select a wider field of verts so that you get more evening. And as you can see from that one, it has brought them far more into a bare positioning. So again, just doing this with the forehead and sticking it back onto that surface. Any areas where you see a bit of distortion, look to select some of the verts, smooth them out, and then stick them back, and there we go. Okay, so that's not looking too bad at the moment. I'm going to cut in a little bit of information for that dimple that sticks at the top of the lip. So all I'm doing is selecting the edges that I want to cut, and then making sure I've got no n-gons by chopping through the triangles to the corners, and then target welding like so, so that I end up with a fully quadded edit there. And relax that area out. And there we go, I've got that little dimple covered. Okay, so at the moment it's kind of looking like a Robocop mask. What I need to do is just even out this chin a bit, and then I can look at sorting out that jawline. But what I'm going to do, so I don't do both sides, is just delete off one half again, and I can mirror it later on and stitch it back together. So what I'll do now is just go around the jawline, selecting a few verts, smoothing it out, sticking it back to the surface, and then selecting some more verts, and working my way up. So it's a very repetitive process, but by doing this I should end up with a much better model that I'll be able to work with and map and put textures on and stuff, than if you just go with what I'd created within in Zbrush. Yeah, so just a few more points to kind of sort out here. So it's not looking too bad now. Sort out a bit of this temple area. And then back into that forehead. Anyway, where you can spot any obvious distortion, then obviously that's going to need a little bit more attention. But it's getting there now. Ideally, I'd cut a bit more information in for that cheek, because there is quite a squared off aspect to that, considering how smooth the nose and jawline and eyebrow area is. But you know, it serves the purpose of the example, so I'm just going to copy and connect these edges. And what you'd notice there as well is that my model was actually a mirrored version, so the faces were facing inside out, and all you need to do with that is just flip normals, and then it should be consistently lined up with the other side. Okay, so those verts are welded. I'm just going to put smooth on it to see whether everything's okay. And yeah, that's looking all right. So what I'm going to do with this is just take it back into Zbrush. So it'd help if I select the object, export it out. I'm just going to save over the top of the existing one. Go back into Zbrush. I don't need this model now, so I'm going to just delete that one out, because the polyframe on it's horrible. And this one, yeah, I just need to import the new model over the top of it. And if I click on polyframe, you can see there's the new topology. Okay, so what I'm going to do is divide this a few times. And what you'll notice is when I start dividing it, it actually pulls the edges of things in a little bit, so that when you put it over the top of an existing object, stuff like the eyes won't line up anymore. So what you're better off doing actually is turning the smooth feature off. So I'm just going to Control Z all that, and so that you can see it better, I'll turn the head off, and I will turn the smooth feature off, divide it, and you can see it keeps the same proportions. Now, I'm not worried about smooth, because as soon as I project onto this high-res head, just go project, increase your distance up to 1, project all, you'll see that when I hide the high-res head, everything's smooth. And that has the topology that I've just created, which is quite useful for doing your animations with. Okay, so that's sorting out your topology.